Howdy gamers, old gamer guy here. Well, I've got some good news and I've got some bad news. The good news is we have a new city building game to check out, Endzone, a World Apart Survivor Edition, and this looks like a pretty good game, so I'm excited to play this. But the bad news is I finally experienced the dreaded corrupted save file with Stellaris. So my series with the hapless I Want to Rock is officially over, right as we were about to go to war, and it was about to finally get exciting, or at least a little exciting. The game obviously was not going very well, but I would have kept playing until the bitter end, but now the bitter end has arrived much more quickly than I anticipated, because I've never actually had a corrupted save file on Stellaris, but it finally happened and it sucks. I will probably be starting a new series before too long. I still have not done a Necroid series, but I could play another race. I'm not really sure, but I'll probably start a new series before too long. And in the meantime, I will keep making other videos like Insurgency Sandstorm, but also different stuff like this. So before we get to it, let's check out the opening video.
Humanity survived. Our ancestors have destroyed the world, and we had to pay the price. With over 100 years without sunlight, but we have prepared ourselves for our chance to make things right. They stole from us a life of happiness. Still, we will make the best of it. Even though Mother Earth is grim and tainted, we have managed to survive. And we will keep surviving.
Okay, I'm into it. So usually with a new game, I try to either play through the tutorial and make a video out of that, or I will just play the game for an hour and make a video out of that footage and just kind of give my first hour impressions of the game. This game has a very long tutorial. It also has scenarios you can play through, so let's go ahead and check this out. I'm not going to read through this, but this is a look at the various scenarios you can play, preset scenarios with different challenges and different medals and trophies to unlock. So you have this for replay value. Then you have survival mode, which I would guess is kind of the main mode, where you set up your map conditions, and you have a few options here, and then you obviously have difficulty. Several different difficulty settings that you would expect, and then a few that like no trees that are different. But here we have a main tutorial, which is quite long from what I've read, but then you have these other individual tutorials for each part of the game, the different systems of the game. So what I'm going to do is make a video out of each of these individual tutorials. And we're going to start with the water tutorial. It's going to take about 20 minutes to get through. And you can kind of see what sort of game this is and whether you might be interested in it.
I'm glad we prepared ourselves well for this kind of scenario. especially since our inventories in the Endzone ran low. Don't forget that if you need additional information, you can look at our survival guide at any time. Welcome to this exercise, old friend. In this session, I want to explain and demonstrate how you can supply your settlers with water. When your settlers don't have sufficient water available, in the worst case, this can lead to making them suffer from thirst and, as a result, possibly even die.
Okay, so that guy obviously has a voice, but I'm going to turn him down just in the interest of saving a little time, and I'll just kind of paraphrase what he's saying there at the bottom. So this tutorial is all about the water supply. Water is obviously a very important thing. It's even more important than food, and they want us to start here by building a cistern. So you press L2 to bring up that menu, but first you can get an idea of how far you can zoom out and how far you can zoom in. And you can see a mini map there in the lower left hand corner, so you can get an idea of how big the actual map is. And we have a starting camp here. We've got people working. You can, in the lower center of the screen, you can see the speed that the game is running at, and you hit left and right on the digital pad to pause it or speed it up, slow it down, whatever. You can move the cursor around with the analog stick, and then you can hold R2 for finer movement, like slowing the movement down, so you can kind of fine-tune where you want to place something. So we've got a cistern here, and we've got our people starting to bring over the required building materials. You can see it's getting dark now, so obviously the time is passing. You can see also in the bottom center of the screen there's sort of a weather forecast. Those icons look like a weather forecast, and we will get to that a little bit later in the tutorial, but there are different types of weather, and the seasons change and all that good business. And now our cistern is being built. So now we need to assign somebody to be a water carrier. Click on the cistern, which gives you access to a few different menus. I'm not familiar enough with all of this to really go too much into it, but in these menus you can you can assign workers to a particular task. And we have finished our first tutorial mission. Very exciting. But now he wants us to build a jetty. We're going to need water. Like I said, water is very important, and we're going to need lots of it. So we're going to have several different methods of collecting water. We're going to build a rain catcher a little bit later, and different things we'll get to a little bit later. But right now, we are starting on our brand new jetty. This won't take as long as the cistern. Okay, so this apocalypse thing isn't all that hard to deal with. We're doing pretty well so far. Here he's just talking about the working area of each building, and so the cistern is used to store water, and the person working at the jetty will be collecting water to put in the cistern. So they're just saying that the jetty needs to be within the working area of the cistern, and all pretty familiar stuff for people who have played this kind of game before. Now they want us to build a well, which will be another way we can collect water. And this game is very, very similar to a game called Surviving the Aftermath, which I also made a video for, and I will put a link to that in the description if you want to see it. But it's a very similar post-apocalyptic colony building game. I'm not really sure yet which one I would say is the better game. I like them both, but I might make a video actually comparing the two eventually. I don't know, maybe not. But we need to assign a worker to the well, and so now that's done. Wells can be built anywhere, but you can't build them too close to each other. So now we're moving on to the water tower, and he's telling us that we could build a completely new building, or we could just upgrade our cistern. So that's what I'm going to do. So we hit X on the cistern, and the upgrade button is flashing down there. And so now our workers will begin to upgrade the cistern, and this will take a little while. I always like watching my little people go about their business and do their jobs. I like the music in this game too. I remember liking the music in Surviving the Aftermath also. But Surviving the Aftermath is actually a PS4 game. I don't think there is a PS5 version of that game, whereas this game is a PS5 game only, I believe. I don't think there's a PS4 version of this. I'm not really sure there's anything going on graphically that couldn't be done on the PS4, but I guess I could be wrong about that. There are some cool water effects in this game. Like if your colony has drought for long enough, then that lake will actually dry up visually. Like the water will slowly, the water level will slowly drop, and then eventually that jetty won't do us any good anymore. And I guess if somebody was fishing, they wouldn't be able to catch any fish, but never mind that. We have our water tower, and he's talking about the filtration system in the water tower, because water can be contaminated with radiation. This is post-apocalypse after all. So we just have to turn on the filtration system in the tower, and that filter requires coal, which obviously we'll have to obtain somehow, but we're not going to have to deal with that in this tutorial. But coal will be another thing that eventually we will have to get ourselves, or maybe you can find it, I don't know. But now he is talking about building a rainwater collector. So we bring up the menus again with L2. There are different categories of things to build. But here is our rainwater collector, and we'll just put it here. Have all of our water related buildings fairly close to each other. Over time you would have to build more and more of these, obviously, as your colony gets larger. That radiation symbol doesn't look very good, but I'm not really going to try to get into that in this video here. Excellent. We now have a rainwater collector. And we have another person. This masked person is talking about weather and making forecasts. And so to make forecasts, we're going to need a weather station. And then eventually, based on the weather forecast, you can do things like to cover up your rainwater collector so it doesn't get irradiated rainwater in there. But the weather station is obviously kind of large, so I'm going to put it over to the side here. I don't know how far out the grid goes from our little colony there, but I am able to place this weather station here, and our little people do get to work clearing away some trees, and they start to bring over the materials to construct this thing. But this is going to take a very long time, so I'm going to go ahead and edit out some of this waiting here. There you can see the required materials to build this thing, and so it's taken a while to accumulate them. But here we go, and now we have a weather station. So now we can have a fairly detailed forecast for the weather, and if we decide that the rain is going to be too dangerous, we can cover up our crops and we can cover up our rainwater collector. But now they want us to build an electric water pump. So we'll go into the menu with L2, go over to the water category. Here's the pump, and I'm very indecisive, so it took me a while to decide where I want to put this thing, so I'm going to go ahead and speed that up. And here we go. I'm going to put it over here by the places where everybody sleeps. There is a happiness measurement for the colony. You have to keep everybody happy, so I don't know if having noisy things near their sleeping quarters is a factor, but hopefully not. But now we have a water pump. But in its present condition, it cannot function, so we need to build a wind turbine to power the pump. Even though the pump does appear to be working, it is animated, even though it's I guess technically not doing anything. There was a I don't know if you noticed, but at one point the guy who talks during the tutorial, he made reference to clicking on your mouse. So there is some stuff about this that's left over from the PC version, but the UI and the way the controller feels, it all feels pretty good to me, and I don't think it's going to be a tough UI to learn. But there we go. We are about to build our first windmill next to our water pump. And we don't have to build any sort of power lines or anything like that. It's just as long as the pump is within the working area of the windmill, then we're all good. And he's just saying that for larger settlements, what we have built so far will not be enough. And we need a place for our citizens, kind of a central place for them to come and get water. Like a water dispensary, basically. I should have probably put this closer to the sleeping quarters, but I put it over here for some reason. Obviously agonizing about the placement. It is an important building. There, we've got some new crops going into the ground there as we await the construction of our water distribution point. And there we go. Now we need to assign a worker, a logistician. We only need one of them, but it looks like up to 3 of them could work here if you wanted to do it. There we go. The logistician will transport water from your water tower to the water point. This in turn enables you to create a network that is able to supply your settlers with water everywhere in your settlement. And that's it. That is the end of the water tutorial. We will be moving on in the next video to the next tutorial, which I think is food. But for now, as always, thanks very much for watching.